Hello everyone. I thought I would make a couple videos and show you guys what I use for my container mixes and for my seed starting mixture. And it doesn't contain any soil. I've had a lot of bad experiences with using soil in containers and in seed starting mixtures, and I won't ever do it again. After you've grown a few plants that pretty much die because of the potting soil that you use, then you learn your lesson, and I learned the hard way. So this is what I came up with just this year, and I found it to be a really, really good potting mixture for anything that you put in containers and any kind of seeds that you're going to be starting. So I use a 5-part mixture that I created, which is, in my opinion, better than what you can get at the store in the bags. You can, by all means, buy potting mixture, soilless potting mixture in the store, but it's probably going to be just a mixture of peat moss and perlite and nothing else. It might have a little bit of dolomite lime in it or something to adjust the pH, but it's not going to have anything else other than that normally, besides maybe a couple fertilizers or whatever. So I will get on with it here and show you the components that I have. I'm using 5 parts normally, and this is my 1 part, so I use 1 part of each of these 5 components, and your part can be anything you want it to be. This is a 4-cup measure, and you can use a little plastic Dixie, those 16-ounce Dixie cups if you're not mixing up very much, or you could use a bucket, whatever, as long as each part is equal. So I fill it up pretty much to the top, and that's 1 part for me. Okay, and this is the potting mix. This is the container mix that's already been mixed up previously, and I mixed this for a good long time, and I did it in my garden cart because I was doing a lot of containers this time. So I actually mixed up like 16 parts, 16 of these cups for 1 ingredient. So I had I guess a 5-gallon bucket of each ingredient, and it filled up about half of my garden cart, which is about twice as deep as a wheelbarrow. It's really nice. I don't know what I'd do without it. Okay, so the first thing I use is vermiculite, and that is a mineral, and it's used in construction but also in agriculture, and you want to make sure that you're getting a good agriculture grade vermiculite so that it doesn't have asbestos in it or anything. And it absorbs water really well, and then it releases the water, so that's its function. And then this is perlite, white perlite, and some of the other stuff got mixed in here, sorry about that, but just the white stuff is perlite, and that is expanded volcanic glass. And so when they do that, they expand it by heating it, and it pops like popcorn, and so it does not retain any moisture at all, pretty much. It's very windy. Sorry if that's affecting the sound quality. It's blowing everything around. But yeah, this is the perlite, and it will give, if you're using it in soil especially, they use it in potting soils that are basically just dirt and perlite, and it just breaks up the structure of the soil so that it's not so compact. So I use it in containers just to give it some aeration and all that kind of stuff. And these are very light and fluffy, and you want to be really careful when you're working with them because you don't want to breathe this stuff in. And when you go taking a cup of it and dumping it in your container, you'll have this big plume of dust. You can see how everything's kind of flying around right now because it's not wet and it's pretty windy out here. So just be really careful when you're using this stuff so that you're not breathing it in. You can use a dust mask or just do it outside and make sure you're faced away from it. It's really windy, as you can see. Okay, and it's covering up my other stuff. Well, okay, so the 3rd part is, I'll go to peat moss here, and this is regular Canadian sphagnum peat moss that you can get at the greenhouse. And I don't like to use all peat moss like most of these potting mixtures are all peat moss, and I don't prefer that, and that's just for a couple reasons, because of the sustainability issue. You know, they say it's not renewable or whatever, and there's a huge debate over whether it is renewable, and there are peat bog farms that do actually try to sustain it, you know, try to harvest it sustainably and renew it and all that kind of stuff, so whatever. But I just don't like to use all peat moss, not only because of that, but because it's very hard to wet down. It's really dry, and it takes a long time to wet it down and a lot of working, and when it dries out, you're pretty much screwed because it's really hard to wet down when there's a plant in the container. You can't go mixing it and wetting it, mixing it and wetting it if there's a plant in there. So it makes it really hard to keep it moist if you let it dry out. So I don't like to use all peat moss, but I do use one part of it, obviously. And so what I use in place of extra peat moss is something called coconut coir, and that is the outer husk of the coconut, and it's finely shredded, and it's a sustainable, renewable choice, and it works really well, in my opinion. And you can always find this online. You might be able to find it locally, but I was not able to find it locally. I had to order mine online, and it was about $11 for a big 11-pound bale, which expands to a huge size. And like, it would fill up, one 11-pound bale fills up this, or it fills it up halfway. So a normal wheelbarrow, it would be filled to the top and maybe even going out, depending on the size of your wheelbarrow. So that's 1 part vermiculite, 1 part perlite, 1 part coconut coir, 1 part peat, and then I put 1 part worm castings when I'm doing, sorry, there's perlite in there. When I'm doing the seed starting mixture, I use all worm castings, and I use 1 part of that. But when I am doing the containers, the castings are really expensive, and so to cut down on costs, when I'm doing a bigger container where, you know, I may have plants living in there all summer, I go ahead and I cut half of the earthworm castings with something like a mushroom compost. This is the compost that I bought by the yard to fill my raised beds over there, and I had some left over, and so I started using it in place of half of the castings when I do my containers. So it's still 1 part fertilizer. Basically, we'll call this a fertilizer. 1 part organic compound, but it's just half castings and half compost when I use it for containers. And so it's still 5 parts, but this is being split in half for container gardening. And then again, I use all worm castings when I'm starting seeds, like in these trays and everything. It's really bright, I don't know if you see it, but this is a whole row of seed starting trays, and so it has all worm castings in it and no compost. And so, like I said, I only mixed it in here because I have several containers to fill, and I used a large amount of it. Normally when I'm doing seed starting, I do it inside the garage, and I use just a small rubberneck. I think this is a roughneck, whatever. Rubberneck? Did I say rubberneck? Sorry. Rubbermaid. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's a Rubbermaid roughneck, and this one is a 14-gallon, 53-liter. And so no matter whether you mix it in a wheelbarrow or in something like this, you only want to fill it about halfway. You don't want to put enough ingredients in it to fill it all the way, because then you wouldn't have room to mix it up, and it's really important that you mix it up thoroughly. And so, like in this one, I only fill it halfway, and then that enables me to get in here and stir it up really well, and I'll take it and I'll tip it up on its end and make it all go to the bottom, and then because you'd be amazed at how much is left on the bottom that didn't get stirred in, and then I'll do it the opposite way. I'll take it and I'll tip it the other way. And if you're doing it in something big like this, you just want to take your shovel and flip everything over and then push it back and forth and stir it like you'd be, stirring a cauldron or whatever. And so that's what I mix it in. And I just thought I'd show you the packaging real quick so you kind of know what to look for. This is the Canadian peat moss, and this is just, I think this is the medium size. You can get a bigger one or a smaller one, and it's really not even a bag. It's a plastic covering, but it's more of a brick when you get it, and it's very compact, and it'll expand to about twice the size it is now. And my vermiculite and perlite I buy in bulk, and so they come in 4 cubic foot bags, and they're really big, and that's obviously the cheapest way to go. And then these are the earthworm castings. Get at the nursery. And this is the coconut coir, and this is a good brand because they take the extra sodium out of the coir, which can be a problem for your plants. So you want to make sure you look for one that is low sodium specifically. And the vermiculite and the perlite you can get in smaller bags, but if you're doing a lot of container gardening, I would recommend getting the bigger bags, but something like this is about the size of the small bag. Okay, so in the next video I will show you how I use the container mixes. Okay, bye for now.